Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. We're in the dog days of summer to an extent. We're also kind of coming out of summer, but it's been really hot here lately and humid and miserable. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about 10 different fragrances that will have you smelling amazing, absolutely fantastic during the dog days of summer before we head into fall. And then we think it's going to get colder, but then it doesn't. It actually just stays really freaking hot. We have an awesome balance here today. We've got some niche fragrances and some designer fragrances with even a little bit of indie sprinkled in for good measure. So let's jump into it and let's check these killer scents out. Now the idea here today was to get fragrances that you can really, for the most part, spray on about as heavy as you want to. Because I don't know about you guys, everybody approaches things differently, but when it's really uncomfortably hot outside, I don't really want something that's gonna just choke me out and choke everybody else out and be really thick and sweet and heavy and all that stuff. That's good for another time, another place, but when it's crazy hot outside and it feels like I'm standing on the surface of the sun, I'd rather have something that's a little bit fresh and makes me feel alive instead of make me feel like I'm melting, which is how I usually feel. Before we jump into it, you know I'm gonna hit you with those codes very quickly, so let's do it. Gents8 is the code for JomoShop.com. Save yourself $8 off any order over $110. A lot of fragrances. They don't cost much. It's a good deal. Save money. And then TwistedLily.com, the code is Gents10, saves you 10% off the entire website. They're a niche website. They have all kinds of fragrances on there, adding new brands all the time. We're going to kick it off with a Louis Vuitton fragrance, Afternoon Swim. It's like this struggle in my brain because you grow up in the southern U.S. and people go Louis Vuitton, and then you hear people say it correctly or whatever, Louis Vuitton, and you're like, what? But yeah, there we go, Afternoon Swim. So this one I picked up not all that long ago, and it's actually the first fragrance that I own from the house. I'm gonna be trying to pick up more of these as time goes on. As you would expect from the brand, it's not really cheap, but it's not really a brand that is probably ever going to put out something that is on the more affordable side of things. If you ask them to do something more affordable, they would look down on you from their throne and laugh and then probably spit on you. Orange, bergamot, ginger, ambergris, some of the notes in the fragrance. It has an absolutely stunning citrus opening, like one of the best citrus openings that you're ever going to smell. And something funny about this fragrance, I'll try to make this quick. Let's say the first couple times I wore it, I thought maybe I made a mistake. It seemed like a really safe note breakdown. No way you could screw it up, but I said the same thing about Bond No. 9 Little Italy, and I hate that fragrance. So anyway, I wore this a couple times, and as it dried down, it had this kind of muskiness to it that reminded me of something a little bit bitter and almost like BO to an extent, and it suddenly hit me. All the people that talk about Light Blue Forever, and they say, oh, Light Blue Forever, the citrus in there smells like body odor to me, I can't wear it. Like, I never got that from that fragrance, and yet with Afternoon Swim, it started to happen, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe they're not insane. But thankfully, the more that I wore the fragrance, I didn't pick that up anymore. It didn't hit me that way, and man, it smells awesome. Only drawback with that one, performance is not fantastic, but because these are all fragrances for really high heat days, I don't really care. I'll spray that on 50 times maybe. Next up, let's talk about Narciso Rodriguez Blue Noir Eau de Toilette Extreme. This one has citrus, ice, musk, and basil as some of the notes in the fragrance. And with that note breakdown, you pretty much know what you're in for here. Something very brisk, something enlivening, something very fresh. Also has a bit of a woodiness in the base, and it keeps in line with the Blue Noir DNA. So it's also, on top of those other things, very classy, gentlemanly. Not that you have to be an older gentleman to pull this off. Younger guys can wear this very easily as well, but it has that touch of class to it, which gives it a good amount of versatility. It's a blue fragrance, yes, in the sense that it has a lot of versatility. like I just said, and mass appeal and compliment factor, but it's never gonna be one of those blue fragrances that gets heavily worn by people outside the community. You know, it's never gonna be up there with the Bleu de Chanel's or the Sauvages. So it also has a little bit of a uniqueness to it as well, which I like. After that, Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino Aqua. Yeah, an aquatic, some people would say watered down take on Neroli Portofino. Now, Neroli Portofino could be in this as well. Neroli Portofino, really easy to wear. It's got that soapiness to it, that freshness that pretty much everybody's gonna like. And Neroli Portofino, that DNA has been used and abused by other brands. And really, Neroli Portofino is not the first one that used that DNA anyway, so who cares? We don't need to go into that right now. It'd take too long. But Neroli Portofino Acqua, even though it's an aquatic version of Neroli Portofino, and a lot of people would write that off and say that's boring, I think it actually smells awesome. And on a really high heat day, especially a muggy day, I'd rather wear this. You've got those white florals kicking in here, Neroli and orange blossom. You can pick those up right away. You've also got citrus in the opening, so you're gonna have this citric feeling the whole way through, and then musk in the dry down, which you're gonna see a lot of musk in these fragrances. Just the nature of the beast when you're talking fragrances of this ilk. Neroli Portofino Aqua, a little bit overlooked on a really high heat day. I think it smells amazing, especially when you catch wafts of it in the air, as you smell very clean. Now let's go to a really cheap one, because Tom Ford, that's gonna be pricey, even at discounters. This one though, gonna cost you next to nothing. It's 4711 Aqua Cologne, lemon and ginger. Note breakdown is what it says on the front. Lemon and ginger. So you know what you're in for. If you spray this on and you're surprised at how it smells, then you weren't paying any attention, and that's on you. This line actually has a good amount of fragrances in it. They all are basically just Aqua Cologne and then 2 notes, but they keep expanding it, keep adding things to it, and at discounters, they don't cost much at all. This is a nice 150 ml size bottle. It is though an eau de cologne, which you probably already knew if you're familiar with 4711. They don't last all that long, but that's why they give you so much. You can go crazy with it, who cares? Spray it in your hair, it'll last longer. If you're bald, just get lotion, lotion your head up and spray it on top of the lotion. Get Vaseline your head up. I'm sure it'll reflect the sun really well and just go crazy. I am not a doctor, do not take my advice, but you could do that if you wanted to in my work. This one smells really good, really pretty simple, but it's that DNA, that style that's been done so many times, where you take a very fresh ginger, a very bright, sweet ginger, mix it together with citrus, and the opening is always a win. It's always mass appealing, everybody's gonna love it, and it's very refreshing. Even says so right on the front here. It's vitalizing, not revitalizing, it's just vitalizing. And the wife loves that one too, so that's always a win. From there, we're gonna go with you or someone like you. So either you or that person, because they're kind of like you. Yeah, I don't know. Mint, citrus, green notes, musk, some of the notes in this fragrance, and it's really, truly all about the mint. How you perceive the mint in this fragrance is how much you're gonna like it, really. So if you love the mintiness in here, then this is gonna be one of the better green fragrances that you have ever smelled. If you don't like it, you'll never wanna wear it ever. Thankfully, I like it a lot, but the mint is different than how you're gonna pick up mint from most fragrances out there. So especially when we're talking designers, mint typically comes across very sweet, but it doesn't smell all that close to actual mint. Like if you went up to a mint plant and plucked a leaf and you kind of muddled it and you smelled it, that type of mint doesn't really get used in designer fragrances, and that type of mint is how this comes across in the opening. So this is more of a realistic mint. And like I said, if you like that, you'll probably love this. If you don't like that, you won't. And this one does get compared also a little bit because of that mint to mojitos, the way that a mojito smells. The opening and the mid are my personal favorite parts of that fragrance, when that mint is just really kicking. I think it smells awesome. As it dries down, the musk comes out and it loses maybe a tiny bit of its character, but it still smells really, really, really nice. Now a fragrance that I love the opening of, another one where I think the opening smells great and it's let down by performance. Now, some of these I can forgive, like the 4711 doesn't cost much. You get a ton of it. So if the performance isn't great, and also it's no to cologne, then whatever, you know what you're in for. Who cares? But this one really let me down. First time I sprayed it on, I thought that is kicking. That's gonna be a hit. And then it just kind of went, vanished. So it is from John Varvatos. It is XX Artisan Teal. First off, the bottle. I think it looks awesome. Really, really like it. I love the Varvatos Artisan style bottles, what they do with the wraps around the glass, and this one is no different. It looks really good. Very classy, but at the same time, it gives you that sort of tropical feel, that kind of vacation vibe, at least as much as a fragrance can. Fragrance bottle. Lemon, pink pepper, musk, sea salt, driftwood, some of the notes in the fragrance here. And it's once again one of those fragrances where the citrus just comes through so pleasantly in the opening, like just the right amount of sweetness, but then offset a little bit by that slight driftwood marine accord underneath everything. Pink pepper, giving it a little bit of a different spicy tinge in the opening, slight spiciness, really slight. It's a very easy to wear fragrance, very likable, the type of scent that you could absolutely see people going into a Sephora, an Ulta, or whatever, wherever you buy fragrances, Macy's, spraying it on a tester strip and going, ooh, that is pleasant. That's nice. And then later on, the fragrance just kind of dissipates and sits very close to the skin, and maybe it lets you down a little bit like it did to me. But there's no denying that the way the fragrance smells, especially in the opening, is so nice, especially if it's very hot outside. So it's one of those fragrances like the 4711 that you're gonna wanna go real heavy on if you're not able to reapply. But as long as people can smell it, it smells darn good in the heat. Indie time, Kieran, New York, Sunday brunch. Now, like most of these fragrances, it has citrus off the top. Once again, we got lemon in here, we've got bergamot, you have jasmine. But what helps set this apart, what gives it a little bit of a unique feel, is Earl Grey tea. It is the only fragrance here that has tea in it, I'm pretty sure. And that tea is going to give it a very unique feeling, especially as the fragrance dries down. So when you first spray it on, you don't get as much of it. You get more of the citrus, bergamot, lemon, like I said. So very nice opening, what you would expect, juicy, fresh, clean. Then as it dries down, that tea starts to come out and it starts to work up underneath the citrus and eventually supplants it. And it gives it an interesting edge, a big change from the opening into the mid as the fragrance dries. Not one of those scents that stays the exact same the whole way through. So it's a little green. It has like spicy nuances to the fragrance as well, but it maintains that freshness. So that one gives you a little bit of a different flair than your more typical, very fresh, summery scents when it's hot out. From there, let's go to Zegna Acqua di Bergamotto. Bergamot, C notes, additional citrus, and kind of a white floral feeling as well. Gonna be some of the notes that you pick up in this fragrance. And this one for a long time you could find very cheap at discounters. I'm not sure if it's as cheap now as it used to be, because back, maybe it was 2-3 years ago, I feel like you could find this for somewhere in that $25 range, 25 to 30. I think it might be a little bit more now, but don't hold me to that, I'm not exactly sure. This one has been compared to a number of different fragrances out there that have that white floral citrus feeling to them. I think some people have compared it to Bergamot 22, comparisons to Neroli Portofino, things like that. And it's one that I've always really, really enjoyed, even if it didn't get the hugest amount of love in the community, because especially when you could get it for next to nothing, the performance again is so with it, but you could spray it on really heavily. The fragrance smelled of a much higher quality than what you would pay for it from discounters, and it would give you a really pleasant white floral citrus forward fragrance that you could wear anywhere, and that's what I always loved about that one. Really nice quality, very cheap. The bottle itself essentially looks like a cheaper version of their higher end fragrances, and that really is basically what this is. It's almost like a more affordable version of their fragrance, Italian bergamot. So if you have the big bucks, I guess you grab the Italian bergamot, but if you want something a little similar but at a much cheaper ticket price, you get that one. Two left. Creed Aventus cologne next up. This one got a good amount of hate and love when it came out. Some people calling it kind of a cash grab, and then other people saying, no, man, this just gives me more Aventus, more of the year. And that does make sense in both of those arguments, actually, because they're both kind of true in their own right. And I'm not going to get into this too much, but there are people that will argue until they're blue in the face that Aventus off their skin with their batch will last 24 hours. And then you'll have somebody else chime in and say, no, it lasts 5 seconds. Like I said, I don't want to get into that. But for most people, they would agree that Aventus has pretty good performance. And if it's very hot, maybe it just wouldn't work out so well. And for me, that's really where this one comes into play. If you were wanting that Aventus style, that Aventus DNA, but you wanted it tweaked and changed and made more specifically for summer. The note breakdown is a little bit different. In the opening here, mandarin orange mixing together with ginger. We talked about this already, the whole citrus ginger thing, but you get that in the opening here. Don't really get as much of that pineapple feeling that so many people love, and you're not gonna get as much of that smoky birch in here as compared to the original Aventus. Instead, you'll have more vetiver and musk coming out, mixing together with that additional woodiness as it dries. So Aventus cologne, not a bad choice. Last but not least, from Xerjov's Casa Marati line, it is Mephisto Gentiluomo. So Mephisto has a similar feel to Creed Silver Mountain Water. And obviously this one is a flanker of Mephisto. And so therefore this one does have a little bit of a Creed Silver Mountain Water feel to it, but it's not ultra close. Especially the more that you smell them side by side, they're pretty different. But if you do like that style of fragrance and you haven't smelled this one, you should probably check it out because you'll probably like it. This does have grapefruit in it, so there's your citrus. It does have musk, so there's your musk. It also has a good amount of florals in here. You've got violet, you have iris, you have lavender. It's very clean. It has a little bit of a similar feeling to like shaving cream from a barber shop. Got a little touch of powder to it. It's probably one of the more gentlemanly fragrances here, one of the more dress-upable fragrances here. That's not really a word, but you get what I'm saying. I will say between Silver Mountain Water, Mephisto, and Mephisto Gentiluomo that this is the one that has taken the longest to grow on me. So it's not one that I immediately fell in love with, but to be fair, neither was Silver Mountain Water. And out of everything here today, I'd say this one is the one I'd go softest on the trigger with. Because if you go too heavy when it's really hot out, then this one probably won't smell all that nice because all those florals will kind of come together and that powdery feel that it has might just be a little heavy, a little too much. And the performance on that one is actually pretty decent as well. So yeah, don't go as heavy with that as you would afternoon swim. All right, guys, here we go. 10 fragrances that'll have you smelling awesome in the dog days of summer. Whether that was a little bit in the past for you and you can just file it away in your brain and then remember next year, or if it's still really hot where you are like it is here. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, please. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.